Hello. In Black Seas there's quite a few different types of ships you can choose from, but there are two special entries that are different from the rest. And we're going to take a look at just this Squadron type of a ship entry in today's video. So stay tuned. Alright, so there are two entries, like I said, in this Black Seas game right now to cover something called Squadrons. And these are represented by three small ships on a single, like 60 millimeter base. Now, gunboats is one of them that makes complete sense. Matter of fact, it comes in most of the fleet boxes. And you can get a gunboat squadron set. I think there's 3 gunboats squadron models in it. Or maybe there's 4. Anyway, within the world markets right now. Now, what's different is these ships behave differently than other ships in the game. A little background: Gunboats and Gunbrigs are the 2 models that are available. Sorry, not models, but entries that are available. Now, gunboats are literally small ships. Sometimes they're even the largest boats that were on, kind of like officers' boats that were actually on the ships, just with a gun or a cannon or 2 fitted on them in a temporary basis. However, other times gunboats were actually purpose-built as small vessels just to carry a handful of guns. Not very strong, but they're heavily used during both the American War of Independence and War of 1812 in the Great Lakes area in the U.S. Just as an example, lakes are a great place to use gunboats. A lot of battles actually included mostly the smaller ships, cutter size and smaller, right? So there's a lot of opportunity to have some characterful scenarios just with these smaller type ships. But let's go on and take a look at what do the entries look like. So here's an example. Here's the 2 different entries on the screen, and you'll notice they're both tiny, but the gun armaments are a little different. Broadside for one of them and is actually a 1 carronade. The broadside for the other is 1 light cannon. Gunboats are the light cannon one. Now, on the Gunbrig squadron, a little note: I'm not certain why they classified them as tiny. What I've seen in Gunbrigs as part of the Royal Navy, they didn't seem to be much different in size from some of your some of your schooners or sloops, so even cutters. So if they're going to make models for those larger, small ships, I don't know why the Gunbrig was downsized, if you will. We'll see what model they come up with. But anyway, until they make a change in the rules or the entry, this is the Gunbrig section here. So now you'll notice both of them have the same hull points, and even though there's 3 models on the base, it's a total of 12 hull points. Now you can think in terms of 4 points per hull, but they abstract this a little bit. There's no turn angle, and we'll explain that in a second. But you'll notice the rate of knots is 4, so they're slow, which makes sense. They didn't have a lot of sail area, and they didn't go very fast. Now, the brake value, just like other ships, you can brake. And that's where, again, it's the same perspective. 1/3 the hull points is usually what the brake value is. But notice it costs 40 or 30 points, depending on the loadout. That is actually pretty economical, especially if you have a scenario where you need to maybe protect a small area, provide some point defense, if you will. But you'll notice that on the ship type, there you can only have a maximum of 3 Gunbrig squadrons or 6 gunboat squadrons per 1,000 points of your fleet. So not a big limitation, to be honest with you, but still, I guess it avoids you spamming them. So let's kind of go over the rules and how you actually utilize a squadron on the tabletop. Alright, squadrons are a very interesting tactical option on the table because they do not come with a wake marker. There is no wake marker. Matter of fact, that's why there's also no turn angle, because the ships are able to turn 1 time at any point during their movement up to anywhere along it to point in any direction they want. They're very, very maneuverable, which kind of makes a lot of sense. So you could literally move forward a couple inches let's just say you kind of move forward a couple and then turn to face this way. Okay, that's actually pretty fair. Now, what's interesting is you'll notice with a gunboat squadron, I'll put the line back up. It has the gunboat squadron, which is what this is, has a bow arc. Okay, whereas the gunbrig squadron actually has broadside arc, which is actually in line with the way the ships were equipped. Most gunboats did have just kind of a forward-facing cannon, just simply because of the size of the ship. But these models actually come with a port, a starboard, and a bow-facing cannon. But anyway, regardless of the model, what's interesting is they can move, regardless of the, there is no level sail as well, so you don't decide whether it's light, medium, or heavy, their sail. They just move one time their rate of knots, which is 4. They can be affected by a wind swell, so they could actually go up to 5, or they could be subject to that becalmed wind change, which would be down to 2 inches. But still, they can make it one turn at any one point during its movement to face any direction. That'll allow them to line up their guns. Now, another interesting fact about their movement is they do not have to move their full 4 inches. You can move them shorter if you want, okay, unlike other ships. So this gives you a lot more precision, if you will, in how you move and position these ships. Granted, you're only looking at one die roll when you do shoot, but it's pretty important. That might be an important die roll. So anyway, so that's pretty interesting tactical flexibility there. One thing that's interesting is because of the small size of these squadrons, they don't block line of sight. So now you still have to shoot them if they're the closest target in your broadside. But if you can shoot past your friendly gunboats and target a distant ship, there's no cover penalties, no partially obscured as a result. So that's pretty good. They also can't take any critical damage at all and can't perform a boarding action. You also can't board them. So they're very limited in what they can do, but they are also limited in how they can impact the other ships on the table. What's really, really beneficial is since they can't be grappled, they also cannot entangle or become entangled. So you can get within 1 inch or less and not worry about it. Of course, you can collide, and these can collide in something else, but again, since these ships you can move any distance up to your 4 knots, these can avoid collisions a lot more readily than your larger ships. But of course, they're tiny, so they're going to take the brunt of the damage when a collision does occur. So I try to avoid that. One other thing is they cannot make repairs, and that's just a fact of the way they were equipped. These don't really have below decks. There's no repair equipment. There's no materials. So these are short-term, usually short-term deployed vessels. They'll drag them in to port to actually do the repairs if needed. All right, so in a nutshell, what you're looking at here is a small tabletop, kind of almost a spoiler type of a unit that can kind of get in the way of some ships to maybe, because again, you can sacrifice these at a cost of, what was it, 30 or 40 points? Very, very, very cheap kind of extraction unit. Oh, sorry, 30 or 40 points. 30 for a gunboat squadron. You'll be able to put them in line in the way of an opponent ship and force them to collide or try to evade the collision. And they'll take some damage. Every little bit of damage can help. Or you can just get close enough and right up against them and fire your broadside and get the double. If you can get point blank, you've got double damage. On a carronade, that's huge when the gunbrigs come out. And again, on the gunboats, you've got the yellow bow arc that you can fire from. So a lot of good positional options as far as lining up shots. 14 inches for the gunboats, only 8 inches for the gunbrigs, but you're going with a bigger gun there. So hopefully this is kind of giving you some insight in how the rules work. They're not hard to use. They might be hard to use effectively, especially against larger ships. You want to use these against your smaller ships. That's what they're best designed to fight. Because if you think about this, These have the same, the gunboat squadron has the same loadout as a schooner, and actually has the same number of hull points. It's just not as fast, okay? But it can turn as far, right? The cutter, which is the same number of hull points and only goes a little faster, has 2 times the cannons, so that's not too bad. It's close, And the one thing that's really going to be interesting is when you look at the Gunbrig, carronades aren't really available on these small ships, except for this one. So if you're going to be using small ships in your game, a Gunbrig might be able to devastate a lot of these. Because remember, just one hit is three damage, and 3 damage on some of these smaller ships is a large percentage. And if you get within 3 inches and double that, 6 is huge. For example, if you go up against a sloop or a bark, they have 16 points of damage. You knock off 6 points right in one close carronade shot, they're down to 10, and now they are 4 points or 5 points away from having to strike colors. So it's pretty. They can be effective. Best, I would say, to use them in larger numbers to get the maximum effect. Only 30 points. So 2 of these gunboat squadrons is 60, and a sloop is also 60. So a schooner would be 80 if you bought 2 of them. It's only 40 points normally, but 2 of these gunboat squadrons will get you 2 light cannon versus the 1 in the schooner, and twice as many hull points. So this is a real option for some of the games when you're playing with more of your lightly armed ships, such as potentially games featured like with the special campaign they put out, like a Smuggler's Run type of a campaign, where you can use gunboats as potentially an adversary in there. Again, you might have to make your own campaign scenarios, but there's a lot of options there. When you're playing campaigns with smaller ships, this really can feature well. And if you're going to play scenarios centered on the Great Lakes, this is definitely one of the units you're going to want to bring, simply because it's historical. They had a lot of gunboats, and to be honest with you, you're not going to get any real rated ships. You're mostly going to get stuff like, well, you don't even know if it's going to be as big as a sloop. Sloop might be the biggest you get in most of the engagements on the Great Lakes. So, all right. So I hope this kind of gave you some light into the squadron special rule and squadron type of units. So go ahead and click down below. Comment if you have questions or have experience using these. Offer your advice. Also, share, like, subscribe, and help other people learn this game that we love so much, Black Seas. All right, catch you guys in the next video. Bye-bye.